Good morning. Welcome to the virtual service of First Parish Church of Groton, Massachusetts. I am Reverend Elia Kemmler. I am so glad you are here. We are a community seeking to deepen spiritually, to take care of one another, and to be a blessing to this world. Unitarian Universalism is a faith for all. So whoever you are, whatever country you come from, whoever you love, whatever your abilities, challenges, or gifts, wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here in this virtual but very real community. Thank you today to Emma Morella, First Parish bell ringer, to Sean McCann, our Director of Music Ministries, for the prelude music, and to the vocal group Carusin for their beautiful singing during the postlude. Carusin is Nancy and Mark Carusis, Lauren Tillier, Carolyn Francisco, and Laura O'Connell Wiley, and you will want to stay to hear them during the postlude. I have a few announcements this morning. We do have the live chat feature active right now. We'll keep it open for a little while after the service ends. I hope you will write in. Let us know where you are from and how you are doing. Just be mindful the chat is a public space while we are live. Come on over to Zoom for coffee hour after the service and a chance to actually see one another's faces. You will see the link to coffee hour on the screen after the service is over. Next week, June 28th, we will gather for worship at the Sunday morning service of the General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association. General Assembly, or GA, is the annual meeting of our denomination, and we will be joining thousands of others from across the country at that service. GA is entirely virtual this year and begins on Wednesday. You can still register for the conference, and the link is in the description box. There are scholarships available for youth and young adults to attend. You don't need to register for next Sunday's worship service. You just go to the link www.uua.org/GA. and it will be live streamed there, and that link is in the description box of today's service. And after the General Assembly service next Sunday, we'll gather for coffee hour as usual. Finally, I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our Facebook page, and also subscribe to our blog called Suddenly at Home Fpcog, where you will find wonderful writing, and I encourage you to consider writing for the blog yourself. Now I'm going to ring the meditation bell 3 times, and I invite you to take 3 good, deep, slow breaths. 1 for yourself, 1 for your loved ones, and 1 for the world. We begin our services by lighting the chalice, the symbol of our faith. The chalice was created during the Second World War for the Unitarians engaged in resistance work, liberating Jews and others who were being persecuted by the Nazis. In the face of hatred and terror, the chalice became a symbol of the inherent worth and dignity of all people, and of our commitment as a people of faith to that worth and dignity. Now it reminds us again. The words for chalice lighting on this Father's Day Sunday are a sweet poem by Ken Nye called My Father's Things. My dad died 28 years ago. I still have some of his things. A red plaid Pendleton bathrobe. I look like Dad in that thing now. An old Sears table saw bought used in 1950. I still use it, but for rough cuts only. An old grinding wheel, noisy as sin, but sharpens mower blades in no time. Trays and trays of screws and nuts sorted in biscuit pans by size, just stir and search. His gold watch, given to him in 57, it hasn't worked for years. It's going to cost too much to fix it, so I keep it in my drawer. I had his pocket knife, but lost it. I always lose my pocket knife. There are other things of his I have as well. I have his feet. I swear my feet look just like his. I have his eyes. They're big and brown. I have his gait, knees kicking out like a bow-legged cowboy. When I walk in front of storefront windows, it's my dad. I have some other things of his too. A love of animals, especially dogs, one of God's greatest inventions. His value system and code of conduct, the do's and don'ts of being a man. Some might say bathrobes and saws and codes of conduct are not exactly jewels to take to the bank. I answer, jewels don't shine as brightly as my father's things. So let's light the chalice today in honor of all fathers and grandfathers, stepfathers and godfathers, and special uncles and brothers and mentors who love children and give them strength. And especially for the fathers who are gone now, but remain in our memories and in our hearts. So sweet. As is our tradition, let's sing together Spirit of Life by Carolyn McDade. We sing it first in Spanish, translated by Lilia Cuervo and Ervin Barrios, and then in English. There's a link to the words in the description box, and I hope that you will sing with me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí, y el corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla el volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arriágame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. So now I'd like to talk to the children for a little bit. First, let's say the words together that you say in the children's circle gathering when you go downstairs every Sunday. They are important words to remember. So say them with me and we'll do the hand motions together. We are Unitarian Universalists with minds that think, hearts that love, and hands ready to help. So this week, the Supreme Court of our country made a very important decision. They said that people who came to this country from other countries when they were kids can stay here, even though their parents didn't have the papers giving them permission to come. There is a special name for these kids. They are called the Dreamers. And this story is in honor of them. It is called Her Right Foot by Dave Eggers with art by Shawn Harris. It is about the Statue of Liberty and how it was made and what it means. And it is also kind of funny. Her right foot. That is the Statue of Liberty's right foot. We're going to learn all about it. You have likely heard of a place called France. If you have heard of France, you may have heard of the French. They are the people who live in France. You may have also heard of something called the Statue of Liberty. Did you know that the Statue of Liberty comes from France? This is true. This is a factual book. One day, a Frenchman named Edouard de la Boule had an idea. The idea was to celebrate the 100 years of the United States of America by giving them a giant statue for their 100th birthday, for our country's 100th birthday. So he convinced another Frenchman with an Italian last name to design the sculpture. The artist's name was Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi, and Bartholdi designed the statue. He first made very small models, then larger ones, and finally the one that is the one we know, which stands 305 feet above the water. This final size version was covered with a thin copper skin about as thick as 2 pennies. That is not very thick. Here is a picture of Bartholdi and his team. He had a team. He didn't work alone. He did not like working alone, constructing the statue's hand. Notice that the hand is bigger than the people. Thus, they made the statue in many parts. These parts were assembled in New York City. No, wait. First, they were assembled in Paris. Did you know this? Ask your friends and even your teachers if they knew the Statue of Liberty was assembled in Paris before New York. This really happened. The Statue of Liberty stood there high above Paris for almost a year in 1884. After they assembled the statue in Paris, they took it apart. And the workers are saying, "But we just put it together." The workers said, "That is absurd," they said. They said all this in French, the language of the French, a people who appreciate the absurd. In 1885, they took it apart and put the parts in 214 crates and put those crates on a boat called the Isère. The boat traveled across the Atlantic Ocean and made its way to a city called New York, which is also in a state called New York. Hundreds of workers, perhaps 214 of them, took the pieces out of the 214 boxes and began to rivet the pieces together. Assembling the statue took 17 months, and it all happened on what was then called Bedloe's Island. Bartholdi liked to see the sculpture rise above the harbor. Sometimes he watched the construction from the water, and sometimes he watched from land. Usually he was wearing a sturdy black hat, for he, like most European men of that time, favored sturdy black hats. You may have noticed by now that the pictures of the Statue of Liberty in this book have her colored brown. You may have thought the illustrator of this book was not so good at his job, because we all know the Statue of Liberty to be a certain greenish blue. But the Statue of Liberty was made of copper, and copper starts out brown, and then very slowly, when left outside for long periods of time, copper will eventually oxidize, and when it does, it turns a blue-green color. So the Statue of Liberty that everyone saw in New York being constructed was brown, The Statue of Liberty, in fact, was brown for about 35 years. It turned green around 1920 and has been this color ever since. Perhaps you already knew this. And you may have known that the book the statue is carrying in her left hand features the date, July 4th, 1776, on which the Declaration of Independence was signed. And you may know that the 7 spikes on her crown represent the 7 seas on earth and the 7 continents and the sun's rays. And you probably know that the torch she carries is a symbol of enlightenment, lighting the path to liberty and freedom. And you might even know that at one point, Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb and the record player, once proposed to have a giant record player inside the Statue of Liberty. He wanted it to be able to speak. In the end, though, this idea was considered a bit strange and not pursued. And did you know that the inside of the statue was designed by another French person by the name of Eiffel? That's right, the same Eiffel who a few years later would design what we call the Eiffel Tower. And did you know that while the statue was first being constructed in Paris, a bunch of Parisians, mostly writers they like to eat, actually dined in the area just below the statue's knees? This too is true. While the statue was rising, Bartholdi set up a lunch 4 stories up to impress these French writers who, being difficult to impress, were at least mildly amused. But there's one thing you might not know, and that is the central point of this book, a point the author apologizes for taking so long to get to. The point is that even if you've seen a picture of the Statue of Liberty, or many pictures or hundreds of pictures, you probably have not seen pictures of her feet. And even if you have seen pictures of her feet, you've probably not seen pictures of the back of her feet, in particular her right foot. What do you notice when you look at this picture? Look, they're underneath the foot. That's right, she's going somewhere. She's on the move. Let's pause here and collect ourselves and think about this. Let's discuss this. Let's think about and discuss the fact that this is the largest sculpture in all the land and the most iconic symbol of the United States of America. Let's talk about the fact that this statue has welcomed millions of visitors and immigrations to the USA. People talk about her unusual headwear. They talk about her gown, which seems a very heavy kind of garment and would likely result in serious lower back issues. They talk about her beautiful torch and the severe look on her face. But no one talks about the fact that she is walking. This 150-foot woman is on the go. Every time we see the Statue of Liberty in pictures, or anytime we imagine it, we see her standing still, very still, like a statue. But she's moving. She weighs 450,000 pounds and wears a size 879 shoe, and she is moving. How can we all have missed this? Or even if we saw this and noticed it, how is it that we have seen and noticed a 450,000 pound human on her way somewhere and said, just another 150-foot woman walking off a 150-foot pedestal? And most important, where is she going? Is she going to Soho to get a panini? Is she going to the West Village to look for vintage records? No, she's facing southwest, so she's facing New Jersey. Could she be going to Trenton? Wait, no, she's facing southeast, so she's not going to New Jersey, but she is going somewhere. Where? Why is she moving? There are certain things we know. We know that around her feet are chains. They are broken chains, implying that she has freed herself from bondage. We know Bartholdi wanted us to know this. He wanted us to see the chains, and people have talked about the chains, but few talk about the foot that is so obviously in mid-stride, about the fact that her entire right leg is in mid-stride. What does it mean that we often forget about this right foot and right leg? Well, here's an idea. Here is a theory. If the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of freedom, if the Statue of Liberty has welcomed millions of immigrants to the United States, then how can she stand still? Liberty and freedom from oppression are not things you get or give by standing around like some kind of statue. No, these are things that require action, courage, and unwillingness to rest. The Statue of Liberty was not built to welcome just 1,886 immigrants from Italy on one certain Sunday in, say, 1886. No, she was built to welcome 3,000 immigrants from Poland the next day, and the next day 5,000 Norwegians, and after that 10,000 Glaswegians, and then Cambodians and Estonians, and Somalis and Nepalis and Syrians and Libyans. It never ends. It cannot end. After all, the Statue of Liberty is an immigrant too. And that is why she's moving. That is why she's striding in welcoming the poor and the tired and the struggling to breathe free. She is not content to wait. She must meet them in the sea. The end. And there's a photograph of the Statue of Liberty. And there is a close-up of her right foot. So I invite you now into a time of prayer and meditation, or simply a time to be quiet. Take a few seconds to breathe, to settle yourself. You might imagine that you are breathing in peace and breathing out love. Breathing in peace, breathing out love. As we rest here together in these days of pandemic and protest, let us remember that we are not alone. We are held in the love of this community, which is bigger than we knew. And we are held in the love which holds all of creation and names each one of us beloved. Let us pray for all who are sick, for all who are grieving, for all who are in need, and for all who are risking their own safety and that of their loved ones to take care of others, and for all who are protesting despite the risk because of how much it matters. Let us hold in love the sorrows and concerns of this community, including these. We pray for Kathleen and the whole staff at Lowell General Hospital, and for all healthcare workers across the country and the world who are so tired, physically, emotionally, and spiritually from this pandemic, and whose hearts are broken by what they have experienced and seen. May they heal, and may they know our gratitude. We pray for Joanne's brother, Bill, who is at the end of his life. May this stage of his journey be peaceful and easy. We continue to pray for Greg and the patients at the Tewksbury Hospital and the staff of Badger Funeral Home for strength and healing. And let us remember our loved ones who have died this spring. Kathy Gilson, Cindy's mother Jean, Paul's mother Doris, Celia's father Donato, Carol's brother Dick, Pat's brother Jimmy, Richard's mother Miriam, Pamela and Charles's nephew Matt, Betty and Jack's nephew Ted, Karen's mother Connie, Risa's father, Jim's sister Barbara, Bob's cousin Ted, Warren and Barbara Henderson, Dodie's aunt Donna, Mary Ann's aunt, Amy's great aunt Jane, George Bishop, Jenny's husband David. And feel free to add your own names here. All of these are beloved. This week brought joy, so let's share that joy and celebrate it together. We celebrate with Kira and Craig the birth of their daughter, Merritt May, born on June 17th. We welcome Merritt to this world. Nancy's birthday was yesterday. Her daughter Margaret writes, "Happy birthday to Nancy, and thank you all for being the community she loves so much." Evelyn is joyful and proud that she graduated from 2nd grade this year. And let us celebrate the Supreme Court's decisions this week extending protection to the Dreamers temporarily and extending civil rights to LGBTQ people. Let us pray for ourselves, for whatever we are in need of right now, for patience or strength or health or hope to carry into the week ahead. And let's breathe together for a moment, held in the strength and love of this community. Amen. So I have a couple more announcements to share. First, if you are local to Groton, you are welcome to come to our weekly vigil for Black Lives today and every Sunday afternoon from 1 to 2 p.m. I hope you will join me on Main Street along the Church Common with your mask and stand and witness to the value and preciousness of Black lives. Bring a chair if you need one, and water and a sun hat. It's hot today. And we have signs at the church. The Board of Trustees has created a First Parish COVID-19 emergency fund. The purpose of the fund is to provide financial aid to members of our congregation and larger community who are struggling due to the pandemic. Our goal is to raise between $5,000 and $6,000 so we can start giving away money. If you are able to contribute, you can use the donate button on the church website, www.uugroton.org. Finally, the church leaders and I are so grateful for your continued financial support of our church community right now. Your generosity humbles and inspires me. Thank you to all who have given, and if you are able to give toward the work of the church, just go on over to our website and click on that donate button. I have a reading for you this morning from the poet Andrea Gibson, who is also a social justice activist. This is from her poem called Saying Yes. It is a long, gorgeous poem. I've not included all of it here, but there are links to the full poem and to her website in the description box. So this is from Say Yes by Andrea Gibson. When two violins are placed in a room, if a chord on one violin is struck, the other violin will sound the note. If this is your definition of hope, this is for you. The ones who know how powerful we are, who know we can sound the strings of music in the people around us simply by playing our own strings. This is for the ones who sing life into broken wings, open their chests and offer their breath as wind on a still day. When nothing seems to be moving, spare those intent on proving God is dead. This is for the time you mastered the art of giving yourself for the sake of someone else. For the ones who have felt what it is to crush the lies and lift truth so high, the steeples bow to the sky. This is for you. This is also for the people who wake early to watch flowers bloom, who notice the moon at noon on a day when the world has slapped them in the face with its lack of light, for the mothers who feed their children first. This is for the people who rattle the cage that slave wage built, and for the ones who didn't know the filth until tonight, but right now are beginning songs that sound something like people turning their porch lights on and calling the homeless back home. This is for all the stuff we own, and for the day we'll learn how much we have when we learn to give that stuff away. This is for doubt becoming faith, for falling from grace and climbing back up, for trading our silver platters for something that matters, like the gold that shines from our hands when we hold each other. This is for the grandmother who walked 1,000 miles on broken glass to find that single patch of grass, to plant a family tree where the fruit would grow to laugh. For the ones who know the math of war has always been subtraction, so they live like an action of addition. For you, when you give, like every star is wishing on you, and for the people still wishing on stars, this is for you too. This is for the times you went through hell, so someone else wouldn't have to. For the time you taught a 14-year-old girl she was powerful. This is for the time you taught a 14-year-old boy he was beautiful. This is for the no becoming yes, for scars becoming breath. This is for saying I love you to people who will never say it to us, for scraping away the rust and remembering how to shine, for the dime you gave away when you didn't have a penny, for the many beautiful things we do, for every song we've ever sung, for refusing to believe in miracles because miracles are the impossible coming true and everything is possible. This is for the possibility that guides us, and for the possibilities still waiting to sing and spread their wings inside us. Because tonight Saturn is on his knees proposing with all his 10,000 rings that whatever song we've been singing, we sing even more. The world needs us right now, more than it ever has before. Pull all your strings. Play every chord. If you're writing letters to the prisoners, start tearing down the bars. If you're handing out flashlights in the dark, start handing out stars. Never go a second hushing the percussion of your heart. Play loud. Play like you know the clouds have left too many people cold and broken, and you are their last chance for sun. Play like you know we won't survive if you don't, but we will if you do. Play like Saturn is on his knees proposing with all of his 10,000 rings that we give every single breath. This is for saying yes. This is for saying yes. There's so much happening in our country right now. Friday was Juneteenth, the holiday commemorating June 19th, 1865, as the end of slavery in the United States. This is not the date of the Emancipation Proclamation, which took effect 2.5 years earlier, but the day a group of Union soldiers finally arrived in Galveston, Texas, to tell the enslaved people of Texas that they were indeed free. The holiday's been celebrated in African American communities ever since, but this is the first year, at least in my lifetime, that white people honored it too. We're in the midst of Pride Month for LGBTQ people whose ongoing struggle for equality and civil rights began in 1969 as an act of resistance to raid and arrest at a little gay bar in New York City called the Stonewall Inn. And that resistance was led by a Black trans woman named Marsha P. Johnson. We are in the midst of a nationwide rising up for the equality and worth and dignity of Black lives. And it is Father's Day, and we're still in a pandemic, even though it has been 3.5 months, and most of us are so ready for it to be over. But COVID cases are rising sharply across the American South and West because it is not over, and states have opened up too fast. In our part of the country, things are opening up slowly, week by week, which is wise. But it also means that we need to renegotiate constantly what level of risk is acceptable to us, and what do we need to do whether or not we feel entirely safe. What level of risk is worth the risk? It's a good time to pause, to stop for a moment, and to think about saying yes. What are we saying yes to now, and why? How do we say yes in the midst of so much that is uncertain and still unclear? What would it mean to say yes, as Andrea Gibson asks, to say yes to the possibility that guides us, and for the possibilities still waiting to sing and spread their wings inside us? What does it mean to say yes to our particular song of courage and hope, because the world needs us now more than it ever has? I think about the yeses I have said in my own life, the big ones, the yeses that have shaped my life and made me myself, the ones that led me to this moment in time. Like you, I have tried to say yes to compassion over and over again, and to acting with kindness even when I didn't particularly feel it. I have tried to say yes to forgiveness when I didn't want to forgive, but I knew I was capable of it. Yes to the sometimes daily challenge of choosing to be on the side of love, to plant ourselves at the gates of hope, even though we don't always have faith that things are going to turn out well. I have learned that these yeses bring me joy, not easy joy, and not all the time or right away, certainly, but joy nonetheless. What are the important yeses of your life? Are you finding a way to say yes, especially to joy in the midst of everything? It seems paradoxical, maybe even absurd, to talk about joy when there is so much suffering and struggle in the world in our country and for some of us in our own lives. But it isn't. Because if we can't live with joy, we cannot call it forth in others or help to create joy in the world. Krista Tippett, the host of the National Public Radio Project on Being, thinks and writes a lot about this paradox, how we need to pay attention to all that is in need of healing and the painful realities of the world as it is right now, while also keeping our hearts and our imaginations and our energy focused on what we want to build, on what we're moving towards, which is, among many other things, greater joy for everyone. She writes, however justifiable our despair and confusion on any given day, it is so critical that we keep orienting ourselves toward the long view. We have to, at the same time that we act and speak and think critically about what's happening in the moment, we have to walk toward and embody how we want to live, how we want to live beyond this moment. We cannot call forth in the world something that we don't embody. She says, I've been in rooms full of very well-meaning good people who are doing good work in the world, for whom I think the idea that you should have joy, any joy, in a moment like this would be a betrayal of what is right and just and good, would perhaps even be a denial or a diminishment of people who are in pain right now. But she says, I don't think joy is a privilege. I think joy is a piece of basic human resilience. It is a human birthright. And in fact, one of the paradoxical and amazing things about our species is how people are able to get through the worst with their joy intact. So if we want to call the world not just to justice, but to joy and to flourishing, we have to find those ways and places where joy is stirring and keep joy alive. Joy is not a privilege. It is our birthright. It is our resilience. It is our healing. What does joy look like for you right now? It doesn't have to be big. In fact, joy so often isn't big. It comes in small things, small moments, paid attention to and honored and savored. So here's your homework assignment for the week. How are you saying yes? What are you saying yes to? How are you going to say yes to joy? So we will close our service now, but I invite you to stay and listen to the postlude music. The chat will stay open for a little while and then come on over to Zoom coffee hour. So put one hand on your heart and with the other, reach out. We are connected, woven together by strong and sturdy threads of love. Go in peace. Be a blessing to this world.